All right, so I welcome you all formally to this course on geology of wells. Okay, so what we have here essentially, we have 3 days as I could see. This is Monday from 5 to 6, and then we have Tuesday from 5 to 6, and also we have Friday from 4 to 5, right? Now, I will take live classes on Monday and Tuesday. Okay, these 2 days we will have live classes. And then Friday 4 to 5, we will have recorded lecture. Okay. So that means over the weekend, it might not be exactly on Friday, but over the weekend, I will upload the lecture for Friday. Okay. And after today's class, I will also send you a link to the YouTube channel, to my YouTube channel. Where all the videos will be uploaded. Okay. Now you must subscribe because this time I'm taking 2 courses and it becomes a bit difficult to every time send you all the links of the videos. Okay. So I'll send you the link to the channel and then you can subscribe it and you will get a notification that this video has been uploaded, and all the live sessions will also be recorded and uploaded in that YouTube channel as well. Okay. Now, the other thing that we need to clarify is in terms of grading. So in terms of grading, what I would do, and this time it is institute's norm, that for your attendance, which also includes your submission of all the assignments and everything, will carry 10% of marks. The final assessment, that will carry 20% of marks. So the rest of the 70% will be quiz, assignment, and so on and so forth. Okay, whatever I ask you to do, maybe I ask you to present something. So all that component will be 70%. And this is what we call right now as continuous assessment. So expect more frequent quizzes and assignments to be submitted. Okay, and that's how it is going to be, I think, for all the courses. Any questions so far? Clarification you need? Yes, no? Yeah. Okay. So it was all clear, I hope. Okay. So that's how we will do it. Okay, so let's start with the course then. And we are going to study geology of wells. Uh, let's try to keep the course, at least in these interaction sessions, bit more interactive, so that I get a feel that you are getting what I'm trying to convey. So please do not hesitate to unmute and talk about it, or stop me where you don't understand, or write a comment in the chat box so that I can read and get back to you. Okay, so let's start with the course then. So this is geology of wells. The course number is ES 624, and we are going to study the different kinds of fuels which has geological origin. Okay. So essentially, we will not talk about biofuels. We will not talk about solar energy simply because they are not produced from the earth. So anything that is produced from the earth, from its from the rocks, that is what we are going to study. And broadly, it is subdivided into three categories: petroleum geology, coal geology, and nuclear geology. Okay. Uh, Earlier in our course, we used to have all these three components as a part of geology of wells. But what that essentially led us to do was we could not really concentrate on either on petroleum geology or coal geology, because we had to also squeeze in a large amount of nuclear geology into it. And by nature, nuclear geology is very different from petroleum geology or coal geology. Okay? So if you are interested to know more about nuclear geology, I will recommend that you take isotope geochemistry course, where you will learn a lot around radioactivity, the radioactive minerals, its geochemistry, half-lives, how it decays, what sort of energy that it provides, what is the future of nuclear energy, where in India the nuclear deposits are there. So you can learn about all those things, I think, in isotope geochemistry course, hopefully. Uh, but we will not cover nuclear geology. We have remodified the syllabus. We will not cover nuclear geology in this particular course, and we will concentrate mostly on petroleum geology and coal geology. So for the first part of the course, we will then focus on petroleum geology. So today's topic of discussion will be some introductory concepts of petroleum geology. And in petroleum geology, we will study about its occurrence, its distribution, its importance. We will talk about exploration, how we find oil and gas. You know, petroleum includes oil and gas. I don't have to say the obvious. And then we will study about its production strategies. And finally, we will conclude with Indian context. So that is your course, more or less, what we are going to do. Of course, in case of coal geology, we will talk about properties of coal, classification of coal, qualification processes, its petrography, coal bed methane, which is kind of an overlap with petroleum geology, its application and Indian context. So that is what we are going to cover in this course for next 3 to 4 months. Okay, so let's start with petroleum geology. And the slides that I'm going to use today have been taken from various sources, so I must acknowledge them. So petroleum geology course given by TU Delft, Shell, uh, British Petroleum, Exxon Mobil, SR, and many other sources. So I must acknowledge that. So why should we study petroleum geology? Petroleum still so far is the primary source of energy, and we will all agree that this is still the primary source of energy. Uh, be it from running our car or maintaining our air conditioning. Uh, you can't even think about a life which is without petroleum, right? I mean, it's almost impossible to think without petroleum. Not only as an energy source, but also is the source of around 10,000 different products that we use every day. So can you just type or name me one product which you think comes from petroleum? Anyone? Any important product that we use every day that comes as a byproduct from petroleum? Plastic, excellent. What else? Wax, very good. Anything? Anything else that you remember? Okay, so we will, as we go with the course, we will see what are the byproducts that come from petroleum. Like another, you missed naphtha. Yeah, that is used for naphthalene and many other fertilizers. So that is another very important product. Wax, as you said, is another very important product. Plastic, yeah, of course, you can't even imagine your life without plastic. Okay, so petroleum, the crude oil itself, is the uh, source for such 10,000 products with very different organic geochemistry ascribed to them. Okay, we'll see some of them as we go, as we move with our lectures. Okay, so the moral of the story, standing today into 2020, when we are moving more towards nuclear energy spectrum, or unconventional sources of energy spectrum, but still we are not there yet. So maybe for next 50 years, 60 years, maybe 100 years, we will still heavily depend on something we call as fossil fuel. Okay, we call them as fossil fuel. That primarily includes petroleum. And this name fossil has a very special significance. When we see how petroleum gets generated, maybe you have some brief idea. You will see that there is a process of fossilification associated with the generation of petroleum. Okay, so the thing that I want to emphasize is, although we are at the verge of a energy scenario change, we are working hard towards more green energy, more clean energy in terms of solar or wind or biofuels, but or nuclear energy. But we are still not there yet. I mean, we don't have a single source which can completely replace fossil fuels. So this is still, yeah.
Sir, sorry, sir, disturb you, sir. Are you displaying the slides?
No, I was displaying the whiteboard.
Because it's not showing us anything. So,
Really?
um,
How come?
yeah, yeah,
Can you
sir.
see it now?
Yes, sir. Got it.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry for that, Aniket. But previously, could you see when I wrote on the whiteboard?
No, sir.
No?
No, sir.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
Okay. I wrote a lot of things. Anyway, so we are into fossil fuels. Uh, so you could not see this slide as well.
No, no, nothing, sir.
You should have said earlier, man.
Sorry, sir.
Okay. Sorry for that. I thought that I started presenting, but then somehow I perhaps missed it. Sorry for that, but I hope the discussion that I said was clear. Okay, yeah, okay. So we are looking into fossil fuels, and for maybe next uh, 50 years or 100 years, fossil fuel will still be extremely relevant. Okay, and hence we are studying them. Okay. So as I said, so we are in the ES 624 geology of fuels. We primarily subdivide the course into petroleum geology, coal geology, and nuclear geology. Nuclear geology we will not discuss in this particular course for the reason that I just talked about. We will mostly focus on petroleum geology and coal geology, and such are the topics that we will discuss. Okay. And we said that petroleum geology, this is the primary source of energy still today, and it is the source of almost 10,000 different products. Okay, now this course is fun. I mean, we are not going to do a lot of very difficult mathematics, of course, but there will be some mathematics there. But the important thing to note is that this is not a basic science. Yeah, This is something which is an applied science, but it is a combination of geochemistry, structural geology, sedimentology, mineralogy, fluid mechanics, mapping, volumetric calculations, risk and uncertainty analysis, and a vast array of industrial technologies. So we will rather focus on the topics which will, and we will actually bring in references from geochemistry, structural geology, sedimentology, and whatnot. Everything in the heaven and earth, whatever exists, we will see some application of them in petroleum geology. Yeah, and we will of course study some very important technologies which are used for exploration and production of in the oil and gas industry. Okay. So the course outline. So the first thing that we will talk about, why it matters, why are we studying petroleum geology, some things around size, volume, money, and then history of petroleum. We'll talk about carbon cycle, organic matter, maturation, composition of oil and gas. So those who are inclined in chemistry would get some flavors around it. So migration of oil from oil or gas from source to reservoir. We will discuss what migration is. We'll talk about reservoir rocks. We'll talk about trapping. We'll talk about petroliferous basins of India. And finally, we will talk a very important topic, we'll at least touch upon, on petroleum economics. Okay. So these are the books that you are supposed to read. I think you will find right now the e-copies of North Petroleum Geology and Shelley's Elements of Petroleum Geology as e-copies. You know how to access e-copies, everyone? Have you been briefed from library? Can anyone tell me if you can access these books? Aniket,
Yes, sir.
can you access these ebooks right now?
I don't know, sir, how to do that, but I'll give it a try.
Okay, so what? No, I think what library has done, they have asked some of the books that they need to convert from hard copy to electronic copies. Okay, which you all can access. Okay, so what
Yes.
I will recommend that as a class representative, yeah, but LibGen is not authentic. You know, LibGen is not. It does have copyright issues. Okay, but you figure it out. You can write to the library, okay, and
Hmm.
maybe as a class, and they will give you the permission to the books. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so please make sure that you have access to these ebooks, because I have requested personally that they actually convert this North's book and Shelley's book, these two books,
Okay.
as ebooks. Okay.
So I'll mail the librarian today requesting for the
Please
e-copy.
find out and please share it with everyone so that
Yes, sir.
everyone gets their copies. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All
Yes.
right. So this is, and okay, this is done. And we have, you remember, we have talked about that Monday 5 to 6 we will have live classes. Tuesday 5 to 6 we will have live classes. And Friday 4 to Friday there will be no class. Friday I will pre-record a lecture, and then I will upload in the YouTube channel, whose link I will send it to you. In terms of grading, attendance will be 10%, and then final assessment 20% and 70% on the continuous assessment part, quiz, assignments, whatever. Okay. All right. So that's more or less the introduction. Now let us start doing some business, and I want you to take a look at these units which we will use every now and then. Okay. So oil is generally expressed in terms of a barrel, and one barrel is equivalent to 159 liters. Okay. So if I give you some numericals which, you know, deals with barrel, you should have these numbers readily in your mind. Okay, so just mark up this slide. You have to remember all these numbers at your fingertips. Okay, So 1 barrel is around 159 liters. 1 cubic meter is equals to 6.37 barrels. 1 metric ton of oil means 6.8 to 7.6 barrels, depending on the gravity, of course. Okay, because barrel is an unit of volume. Okay, and a ton is an unit of weight. So it will depend on the specific gravity, of course. But gas is expressed in millions of cubic feet, and it is expressed as capital M CF. So this is what we call as million cubic feet. And 1 million cubic feet is equivalent to 3 into 10 to the power 4 meter cube. Okay. So these are some of the numbers that you have to remember. Okay. There is no other way of remembering them. Just you have to remember them. 1 barrel is equals to 159 liter. Okay. Now, sometimes gas is expressed as oil equivalent. Say, for example, if you want to express how much oil, how much hydrocarbon is there in India, okay? Maybe someone asks you, okay? So you kind of add the total amount of oil with the total amount of gas, but then you can't add them directly because one is liquid, another is in the gaseous state in your normal room temperature. Okay, so what you do essentially, you convert gas into barrel of oil equivalent. Okay, so 6,000 to 6,500 cubic feet of gas is equals to 1 barrel of oil equivalent. Okay, so you can do some quick calculations, say for example, 1 million cubic feet of oil equivalent, 1 million cubic feet of gas means how much of oil equivalent. I think this is a good conversion that you should keep ready in your head, because that you can use very readily, because when you try to um, express the capacity of a field, for example, say for example, maybe Bombay High. Okay, so that will say, for example, we'll have 1 TCF of gas. I'm not saying that's the right number, but it's in the order of TCF. TCF means trillion cubic feet. Okay, another magnitude higher. So that 1 trillion cubic feet you should be able to express in terms of 1 barrel of oil equivalent as well. Okay, by this simple equation. Okay, and this will also depend on the specific gravity of the oil in that particular area, because here you are converting your gas into, so this will depend on the compressibility of the gas. Okay, which can be a little bit different from one place to the other. Okay, and then you can express them as a barrel of oil equivalent. Okay, there are some interesting numbers that I want to bring it to you. So number of oil and gas wells drilled till date is around 7 million. Okay, so what is a oil well or a gas well? So you must be knowing that oil or gas actually sits. So say this is my ground. Okay, and oil and gas generally sits. It can sit at a very shallow depth, maybe 200 or 300 meters, or it can go all the way up to around 5,000 to 6,000 meter as well. Okay, so here in a very special rock, which we will discuss, we call as reservoir rock. That is where within the porous space means which we call as porosity as well, within the blank space between two particles of a rock, between two grains of a rock, oil or gas actually sits. Okay. So what you need to do essentially is to drill a well, okay, and then pump it out. Okay, then you pump it out. Okay. Now, and this is what we call is a well. Okay. Now, wells can be broadly subdivided into three categories. Okay. One we call as wildcat well, actually four categories. Wildcat well, then we call something called exploration well, then we call something called appraisal well, and the fourth category is called as production well. Okay. Now, suppose this is an area where nobody has explored anything before. Nothing, So you drill the first well in this area. Okay. So you are the managing director of a company. You drill the first well in this area. Okay. Then may or may not be you discover there is oil or gas here. Okay. So the first well, first one or two wells which are drilled in a completely virgin area, okay, that is what we call as wildcat well. Okay. The first one or two wells which are drilled in a completely virgin area just to prove the presence of oil or gas in that area. Okay. That is what we call as wildcat well. Then your field actually matures a little bit. You are more, so you see that there is, some oil shows, some gas shows, okay, and then you are interested to, proceed further. You want to explore the area, so maybe you drill another 5 wells in that area. So this is my wildcat, and these we will call as exploration wells. Okay. So you are exploring that area. Okay. So these are my exploration wells. And then, so I have explored, and then I said that yes, man, this looks promising, and let's try to see if this particular area has really be the potential of having economic amount of hydrocarbon. Okay. So, for example, so then what we are trying to do, this is my area which I have explored, okay, which has maybe one. So now we are looking at the plan view. Okay, we are just looking from the top, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 wells. Okay. We have just proved. So this is my wildcat. This is another exploration well. Now we want to understand that, okay, I have proved that there is oil and gas here. Now what is the target next? I have to prove whether I have economic amount of oil or gas there. So that means whether my gas is oil or gas is simply over this area, or the oil or gas actually goes way beyond, So that is something we have to appraise. And hence what we will do, we will drill more wells, and these will be called as appraisal wells. Okay, so that will be used to appraise your field, right? And finally, what you will do now, I have appraised that area, okay, and then I say yes, this looks economic. So I have enough hydrocarbon, oil or gas, to actually take it out from the ground. And that calculation you have to do while you do your petroleum economics, simply because, say for example, one well on the land, and which we also call as onshore. Okay, right now we will use some other sort of nomenclature. A well or a field, if it is in the land, we will call them as onshore. Okay, so an onshore well actually costs around, on an average, maybe in the Netherlands, around $5 million. Okay, and the same well, if you want to drill in Gulf of Mexico, if it is in the Gulf of Mexico, in the offshore, offshore means this is in the sea, right? So if you want to drill the same well in the offshore, that costs around 20 to 25 million dollars. One well, man. Okay, please remember. So, so say for example, I find out to actually produce from this field, I need 10 wells. Okay, and then each costs around 20 to 25 million dollars. So just by drilling the well, I spend around, you know, $250 million, right? I'm just being very conservative, okay? Just by drilling wells. Now I have to make sure that I have enough hydrocarbon that actually not only surpasses $250 million, that is way more than that. Maybe I get a total round of value of, I'm just giving you examples, okay? Don't get into the actual numbers. Maybe the total life cycle I will produce oil or gas that is worth of, around, 2 into 10 to the power 6 billion dollars. Okay. Then I say, yes, man, let's go ahead. This is my right opportunity. But if it doesn't make sense with respect to economics, then I will abandon the field. Abandon the field. Okay. So I will not do any more activities in that field. Okay. So these are my wildcat wells. These are my appraisal wells. And then finally, what you can do, you can drill a closed network of wells that you will use to actually take the oil and gas out. Okay, and they are called production wells. Production wells. Okay, so wells can be subdivided into basically 4 categories: wildcat, exploration, appraisal, and production wells. Okay. Now, if we look at some of the numbers, what we see that in the US, the number of oil and gas wells drilled till date is 7 million around. Okay. Percentage of wells in the US is around 50% of the total number. So this is in the world, this is in the US. Production wells worldwide is around 1 million. So that means 6 million wells are essentially not drilled for production. Okay, they're drilled for exploration or appraisal. Average production of oil wells in the USA around 20 billion barrels per day. Average production in the wells of oil wells in the Middle East is 7,000 billion barrels per day. Can you imagine? Just look at the difference. Just look at the difference in this number, okay? Just look at the difference. In the US, it is 20 billion barrels per day. And in the Middle East, it's 7,000 billion barrels per day. So that's why Middle East is so rich. It's simply the money from the oils. The total number of producing fields is around the world is around 40,000. Field means the thing that we have just drawn here. So this I will call it as a hydrocarbon field, be it oil or gas field, right? The total number of petroleum geologists, which I hope some of you will be in future, is around 100,000 in the world. Total number of drill rigs worldwide, they're around currently working, maybe not during the lockdown period, that has been a little bit less, is around 5,000. Okay, so that brings me to your first assignment. So this is the figure that I have presented for you for the world. But you need to find out, do some research in the internet, and you have to find out these figures for India. Okay, and you have to email it to me individually by this weekend. Okay, so what is this? What are these figures for India? I think you can find them very easily. But what you need to do, not only give me the numbers, you have to give me the reference from where you have taken that data. Okay? So that will be the first assignment, which individual email I will receive from all of you. Okay. Now, this is hydrocarbon consumption, the variation of hydrocarbon consumption per year. Okay. So thousands of barrels per day. Okay, so that means in 1980 we have been using worldwide. So worldwide crude oil consumption per year in the 1980s it was around 60,000 barrels per day. Okay, 60,000 I mean 60,000 barrels per day, and you can see that the consumption is keeping on increasing. Yeah, so we are not consuming less as we are moving ahead with time. Okay, so the oil consumption is increasing. Now, this is another very important slide to look for, and this actually determines a lot of the components of world economy, and that is what we call as oil price. Okay, so this is 2007, and this is still, I think I have data till 2016. Yeah, and then this is 2019 to 2020. Okay, let us look at this data. Okay, so this is 2007, this is 2008. I have kept this data because of some personal attachment that I have. So 2008 is the time when I started working for Shell. Okay, and that was the time you can see the oil price was around $140 per barrel. Okay, so 2008 will be somewhere here. So there was like a creamy period for oil industry. Very nice time. And then we saw a dip. The oil price dropped up to $40 per barrel. Then it slowly picked up. It went all the way, sometimes went up to $120. But kind of, with some fluctuations, it went up to, $100 per barrel. And I left job for Shell is around in 2016, so which was here. And you can see that it had started to go down. And then it again, of course, went up. It became all the way up to $60, $70 per barrel. Okay. So the moral of the story is the oil price is extremely fluctuating. Okay. And it has direct implication in terms of the world economy. And it actually controls world economy, your share market, and everything. Okay? Be it in India, be it in abroad. Although, such oil price fluctuation is not always reflected in the petroleum price that you buy in a petrol pump in India, but that issue is completely different. It has a lot of subsidy story around it, and government's tax around it. So this is, although it should reflect in the price that we observe in a petrol pump, but that's not essentially the case in India, at least. Okay, but more or less, the moral of the story is oil price do fluctuate a lot, and it controls world economy to a greater extent. Now you can see here, this is September 2019 to August 2020. Okay, it's very latest data that I have just gathered. What you observe here, this very big dip starting from March to June, and then it again picked up a little bit. It went all-time low of around $13 per barrel. Do you know why is this? Yeah.
Lockdown.
Yeah, this is for the COVID pandemic. Yeah, so that had very, very direct implications on the consumability of oil and gas, and hence it was reflected in the petroleum crude price as well. It had actually seen the minima around $13 per barrel, which had not happened for many, many years. Okay. Now I want to share, before we actually end this class, uh, I want to share one very funny irony kind of slide. Okay, so worldwide petroleum reserve, okay, 1,000 million barrels, and this was published in ITPC 2006. What you observe here, that so this is the color which represents the maximum production. Okay, and as you can see that the maximum production comes from the Middle East. Okay, so 742.7 into 1,000 million barrels. Okay, so that is what is being produced from the Middle East. Okay, so that is the highest that one can produce. Okay, and you can see where India is. We don't produce a lot. Okay, it's at the lowermost part of the spectrum. Okay, so bear in mind that Middle East produces maximum. Okay, and then you can see here where is United States of America. It's around 59.9. North America. It's not. Of course, it's not comparable to what is in the Middle East. Okay, very close to what we produce in the Asia Pacific, right? So this is what they produce, maximum production from the Middle East. Now let us see where it is being consumed maximum. Okay, you can see here the US and the European countries. Of course, Middle East produces and they consume. I mean, no problem. You produce, you consume, but they don't produce as much, but they consume almost at the maximum. Okay, so does European countries. Okay, and India, we are our consumption per capita is 0.75, whereas in the first world countries it is more than 3. Okay, so we don't put so much burden on the consumption if you think relatively. Although you can see so many cars running in India, and the traffic system is very high, the traffic load is very high, but still you can observe that the first world countries and Middle East, they actually take the fair share of, I mean, not fair share, even more than the fair share of the total hydrocarbon that is being produced all over the world. But what I want you to actually compare is these two pictures. What they consume and what they produce. Middle East does produce significantly higher, and that's why you can actually could supply the rest of the world's demand. Okay. So far, any questions from any one of you? Please ask. Although we have not talked about anything technical yet, but anyone has any question? Not clear? No? Okay. So I will just finish the lectures, today's lecture by this particular slide, which I want you to kind of have a takeaway as. Okay. So this is essentially just don't be bothered with the numbers. Just look at. So this is from 1981 to 2006, how the demand from different energy sources have been increasing. So this is coal, the energy uh, uh, requirement from coal. I mean the demand of coal, which has been increasing from 1981 to 2006. That's a very steady increase. Okay, this is oil, this is natural gas, this is nuclear, this is hydroelectricity. Okay, so this is what you need. Maybe if we say this is right now, this is what you need. And as you can see, a significant portion of it comes from oil, comes from natural gas, and comes from coal, which we will study in this particular course. Okay. Although hydroelectricity, nuclear, they are very promising, of course, you know about them, but they are nowhere near meeting the total demand that we have in the world today. And it doesn't look like that in a very near future they will actually go up or like have a drastic jump to actually cover up. Okay? As you can see how it is going. The other sources of energies, for example, solar, wind, they do not even come into the picture. So you cannot plot them. I mean, the resolution is so low. Okay. So there is a good amount of time before which um, till which, I mean, the fossil fuels, the natural gas, oil, and coal will be still relevant to the society. Okay. So what I will do, I will also send one of the articles that Professor Tandon and I wrote about the energy needs of India. Okay. So this is global context, the energy needs of India, and its a byproduct, which we will discuss tomorrow, and its byproduct in terms of hydrocarbon, in terms of carbon dioxide emissions, and what are the measures that we can take to reduce carbon dioxide and everything. Although if you don't even focus about the carbon dioxide for the time being, you will get a comprehensive idea about where we are standing in terms of this energy usage. Okay, so I will send you that paper as well. Please read these things. Please read that paper as well to get a comprehensive idea about what we have just discussed. Okay, and I will also upload this video in YouTube. And I will see you tomorrow then with the continuation of this lecture. So if you please, so for next 2-3 minutes, if you have any more questions, you may please ask. Anyone? We see where is Om. Was everything clear?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So today's lecture was not very technical. We just gave you an introduction what you would expect in the class, and we will take it from there. Anyone else? Pratichi?
No, sir, no doubt, sir.
No?
No, sir.
Okay. See. Ayush, you are in third year, is it? Ayush Panwar? I think he's muted. I'm just seeing.
Yes, sir.
Was it clear? Everything was clear for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. You are a third year student.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's very odd because I know Aniket, Akash, then Chandra Prakash, Gokul, Gopal, Jay. These names are familiar and I can relate them to their faces as well. Pratichi, Sudeep, Vangshika, but rest of you, Mohammed Jasim, but rest of you, Nadim as well. I can recollect your faces, but for rest of you, I haven't met you, I guess, properly in the class. Would have been better if I could meet you face to face first before we had an online session. But hopefully we'll be back soon. All right then. So I will stop it here. I will. We will have the lecture again on tomorrow, same time, and on Friday I will upload the lecture. Okay. If so, I will also send you the link to the YouTube channel and yeah, and the paper that I just mentioned. Okay.
So can you send the recording to me, because a large number of students, third year students, couldn't attend today's lecture. I guess I notified them a little late. There are about 16 third year students who are enrolled for your course as of now.
Another
But
16 or it's
uh,
okay
total 16 in
in
total.
total. Okay. Okay.
But I
So
guess only half of them have enrolled.
no,
I
I
mean,
will send you the
attended.
YouTube. Ask them to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Na? They will be able
Sure,
to see the lecture in the YouTube itself.
sure,
Okay.
sure. I'll do that.
I'll
Can,
send you the link to the channel so that you can all view it at your leisure. Okay.
sure, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right then. Okay. I'll stop it here. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.